that loud enough? Okay, perfect. All right, so as Jake said, I'm Adam Ely. A year ago, exactly a year ago, so this conference is actually quite special for me. Exactly a year ago, I quit my job the day before I came to speak at RVAsec. I came last year to speak about cloud security. So I was the CISO for Roku at Salesforce. Prior to that, I was a CISO at TiVo. Prior to that, I was at Disney, et cetera, whatever. I quit my job literally a day before I flew out here to RVAsec to stand up and talk about cloud security, and everybody saw my email address was Blue Box, and everybody was very curious, and the company had not launched at that point. I think there was three of us working in my co-founder's living room in San Francisco, small and tight, and so we started that company. I came out here, started speaking, and it was very nerve-wracking. 1 year later, almost exactly to the day, 1 year later, I'm now here to talk about BYOD and mobile security. So my new company, Blue Box, that's the space we're in. This is not a vendor pitch. Anyone in here that knows me, has ever worked with me, knows I suck at sales and should never be allowed to do it. I'm horrible at it. But we're going to talk a little bit about enterprise challenges with BYOD and mobile in general. So again, that's a little bit of my background. This is why I'm here speaking, and I'm not doing a vendor pitch trying to sell you on a product, right? I come from enterprise. That's my space. I'm not your normal salesman. I don't normally come from the product space. My co-founder does. But I come from the enterprise space. I have the same problems that most of you probably have. So let me just get a quick check. Those who have never been in a presentation with me will quickly find I like to talk to the audience and get you guys to participate, because I will go 100% off deck if we have to make sure we cover what you guys want to cover. How many guys here are vendors? Okay, small percentage. I asked this question a couple months back in this like round table forum thing. Everybody but one person raised their hand. And I'm like, oh, I'm giving a talk to enterprise and everybody but one person is vendor. This isn't going to go well for me. So I like to check that. How many are government, state, federal, local, anything like that? Okay, all right, more than I expected. That's good. How many just enterprise, a standard business enterprise? Okay, all right, and the rest I'm going to assume are educational or unemployed or whatnot. Not to say educational and unemployed are the same thing, didn't mean that. Sort of. Okay, all right. So anyway, how many of you are trying to deal with mobile strategy and BYOD? Good percentage. How many of you have solved this problem in your enterprise? Okay, no hands. All right, good. Every now and then I have one person raise their hand. I'm like, please tell me that solution. I would love to put that up here. We'll be done in one slide. That'd be great. All right, so how many of you right now allow or want to allow BYOD in your enterprise? Okay. How many of you are like, hell no, no BYOD? Okay, a couple people. All right. So shout it out. Give me a reason why no BYOD. It's already here. All right. Don't have to allow it because it's already there. For the people that want to just keep it completely out of their enterprise and they want to shut it down, give me a reason. Nobody? Okay. I'm not going to put you guys on the spot. I'm going to let you guys warm up a little bit, but we'll come back to that. All right. So BYOD, most of the reasons why people say why they allow BYOD is right there, is that answer we got. It's already here. Your data is already on mobile devices, be it laptops, be it phones, tablets, whatever it is, right? So most people say, okay, we just have to enable this. We have to get our hands around it because we can't stop it. We're in that trend right now. I hear a lot of different things. We have BYOD. I hear BYOT, bring your own technology. There was like 3 others that I heard last week in some pitch. But we're at this interesting place in technology right now where end users are driving more of the decisions for us than they ever have. They can now go out and they can sign up for a $7 a month cloud service. They can go get whatever phone they want and hook it up to email, assuming you have access from the outside. They don't need IT to come over and say, hey, configure my Outlook and my PST and my offline, and all this stuff, right? They can just do it. Apple has made it very, very simple. Android, questionable how simple it is. I'm not an Android fan personally. But Apple anyway has made it very, very simple to be able to adopt and use BYOD inside the enterprise. And this is why. The BYOD, it makes it just easy access to data, easy workflows, increases the productivity of end users. There was an article that was published on Wired not too long ago that I wrote that talked about when I was at Disney. I was a BlackBerry fanboy. How many of you still use BlackBerries? Okay, just a couple, not that many, unfortunately. So I was a BlackBerry fanboy. I used BlackBerries from before it even had a phone, when it was just an email device. It was the greatest thing ever, right? My neighbor was a tester for RIM, and so I got one really, really early, and then when I got in the workforce, I kept using them, and it was great. When I was at Disney and I was running security for a couple divisions at Disney, IT came over one day, and they'd been chasing me for about a week and a half, something like that, to take my BlackBerry away from me, and they wanted to hand me an iPhone. And I remember looking at the guy and saying, what do I do with this toy? Like, this is a toy. Can it even do email? Can it do calendaring properly? And anybody who used the first iPhones knows calendaring was horrible on it. Like, things got out of sync, things got deleted. It was bad. RIM was dominant in the market for that, and it was great. So they took my work device away from me, and they apparently I'm probably the first person to stress test this area of the stage right here. It's freaking at me. And they gave me this little toy that Jobs, who was on the board at Disney at the time, said I had to use. And I was pissed by this. Fast forward about 4, 5, 6 years, and I was at TiVo, and I was going overseas, and they said, here, take the company BlackBerry with you. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I've used a BlackBerry, it's fine. I get to Hong Kong, and I'm trying to send an email. I can't figure out this stupid thing. I'm like, how do I attach a photo of what I'm trying to send? How do I save this document? How do I e-sign? How do I share? I just couldn't figure the thing out, right? And what had happened is I got so dependent on these applications that I could go and download and utilize that I no longer knew how to use just the standard BlackBerry. I had a better workflow. I didn't want to go back to my hotel to find my laptop to do whatever I needed to do. And so this has opened up this whole new world of productivity for end users, and we have to figure out kind of how to adopt that because, as somebody said, it's already there. So give me another reason. What are the other reasons why some of you are looking at BYOD other than it's already there? Any other reasons? Or does it all come back to it's already there and productivity? Was that, did somebody say something? No, nobody said something. Speak up, guys. Seriously. I'm really awake this morning. I'm on West Coast time. You guys should be way more awake than me at this point. All right. So this is one of the reasons that BYOD and mobile is staying out of the enterprise. IT teams are scared of mobile and scared of BYOD. It's something new. It's a challenge, right? And so these are some stats that were put together by some analyst firms to basically say why enterprises are scared about mobile, or what security threats does it pose. What I find is very interesting is that employee-owned, I don't know if you can read the subtext there, but the employee-owned tablets is what's all the way to the right. Employee-owned smartphones is what's next to the right, yeah, to your right there. Those are the two that people are most concerned about. They're not concerned about the company-owned devices, which is interesting. So let me ask you, why does the employee-owned devices pose more risk to the enterprise? It's a question for you guys. Fair? Any others? It's all about the data. You can't control the data. Okay, very good. Go ahead. Can't enforce security policies. Okay. And so let me ask you, like, the security policies. What kind of security policies would you normally want to enforce? Okay. And the unknown. What are some of the unknown things that might be scary? What they've installed? Gotcha. Okay. What about mobile malware? Raise your hand if mobile malware is a concern as well. Okay. And I see a lot of hands not up. Anybody want to counter that? Anybody have a point of mobile malware not being a security risk? Anybody? There's a lot of you smiling. You guys just don't want to speak up, but that's okay. I'm gonna let it go because I can see you, so I know which one of you are thinking about this. Okay, I'm up here. I can see everything. Okay. Anyway, so mobile malware is the one that, interestingly enough, when I talk to people, so unknown, security policies, and data. Those are three wholeheartedly I agree with. That's why I got into this space. Mobile malware is one that comes up a lot. There's always some new article. Mad props to the PR teams and marketing teams for some of these. Lookout, a fair notice here, Lookout is a sister company of ours from the same investors, so I have to tread lightly, I'm told. But there's always some report that comes out like this. This is from last year. but it shows this huge spike. And I just saw another one the other day. It said mobile malware has increased 3,000% quarter over quarter. But when I went and pulled up the report, it was like hundreds of samples, like hundreds of variants of the same couple types of mobile malware. It wasn't like there was thousands or millions of new samples. Again, here, this is a report from Lookout that talks about the different types of mobile malware. So we have toll fraud. The green is just other malware, and then we have spyware. And the toll fraud stuff is the biggest thing there. I was just speaking to somebody the other day, and I was talking about how toll fraud is my favorite thing right now in malware. Because toll fraud is a throwback to the internet dial-up days, when you would get some kind of virus on your computer that would then change your dial-up internet settings and would route your dial-up for your internet connection. You thought you were calling your local AOL or whomever, and you were dialing some toll number in Europe or the Middle East or wherever, and you were getting charged like $18 a minute while you're on the internet. And now we're seeing this with malware on mobile phones, where they're doing it with SMS, or changing your SMS gateway, or they're texting out to toll numbers, or they're rerouting some of your calls. And I absolutely love this because it's a throwback to the old days. So it's probably my favorite thing that's going on right now. But here's a list of some of the things that I hear from people that are risk for mobile. There was a stat that came out that said 55% of people send work email and documents from their mobile device through their personal email. So that goes back to the data control, and do you know that people are doing that kind of thing. Most people will use insecure Wi-Fi networks. I am one of those. I travel quite a bit, so when I'm here at conferences, actually I never use the conference network, let's be honest. But when I'm at my hotel, that's the best place to attack me. I'm not a coffee drinker, but if I was, I'm sure I'd use it at Starbucks or Pete's or whatever, or if I was here at a campus working. I think one of my favorite things on this slide, though, is this survey from IBM. I don't know why, but I love to pick on IBM for some reason. I have no real reason why, but they just always have the best data for me to pick. And this basically just says that most of their employees were just completely unaware of the risk, right? This, which is interesting when I think it was the CIO or the CSO, I don't recall which, from IBM, came out a few months back and said, we're not doing BYOD. We have our reasons, and we don't want to do it. And in the rare cases we do it, we lock it down. They've backed off that statement quite a bit now, and they're really broadening it out, because they're trying to sell solutions to their customers. So they can't say that it's a bad thing. They're trying to sell the solutions. So, but I think that's always an interesting one. How many? And I want to take a quick survey, because this last number is always surprising me. How many apps do you have installed on your mobile phone? Apps that didn't ship with the phone. Just yell out some numbers. Just ballpark. 20, 30, 50? Like crap. Okay. All right, so the average here is 41. This stat's about maybe 6 months old or so, but the average is 41. When I saw this stat, when my marketing guy came to me, my marketing guy brings me all these stats and things like, you got to use this, you got to talk about this is important. I'm like, no, I don't want to throw stats out there. I thought this one was interesting because I went and surveyed the office, and the office was somewhere around 30 on average. I have 8. I have 8. I do my entire workflow, my entire life with like 8 apps on my phone, and I'm quite happy with that. I apparently am missing out on some goodness. If somebody's got 50, I got to get a list of that. I got to understand what I'm missing. All right. So anyway, here's a list, a bunch of the BYOD risks. This is stuff that we hear people talk about. We hear journalists say. This is what vendors are pitching. Evil vendor. All of that kind of stuff. Does this resonate? It's a little more comprehensive than what we talked about earlier, what some people said. So let me ask you guys, what about rooted or jailbroken phones? Are those a concern in your enterprise? Would you allow a rooted or jailbroken phone to connect to corporate email or have corporate data? I see some no's, see some more no's. Okay, so what about a company or organization approved root and fix, I'm going to call that. Anybody would allow just a straight up rooted device, any end user, to connect? I'm not seeing anybody say yes. So give me some of the guys that said no, why not? Don't know what's in it. Okay, so we're back to the uncertainty thing. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, the NSA's research on this is quite interesting. So we work with the NSA quite a bit in the CIA, and they're sampling some of the stuff that we do, and some of their stuff is quite interesting. Their approach to it, and some of their stuff only ever works in the government in that type of security environment. It won't work for the rest of us in the world, but it's quite awesome. I like it quite a bit. So some of these things, so the jailbroken devices, app permissions, this is the app copying your corporate data or doing whatever it supposedly does. Cloud storage, your enterprise lack of enterprise control, talked about that one a little bit. Device patching is always an interesting one. We always talk about patching servers, and we always talk about patching laptops and applications. I'm just now starting to see discussions around patching mobile devices. Does anybody in here have a policy on patching mobile devices, or thinking about one, trying to develop something around that space? Okay, I don't really see much there. So it's interesting because mobile devices tend to roll versions much quicker, and on iOS, the adoption rate of a new version is ridiculously fast. I mean, users want that new version, and so old versions roll out pretty quickly. So the risk window is kind of small. So I'm gonna use the Alex word there with risk, and that's what I learned from Alex. And on Android, on the other hand, because there's so much fragmentation in the market, and you have some devices that are at the lower end of the spectrum, we see the adoption rate is still quick, but much, much slower. So device patching is something that I'm actually seeing more and more companies concerned about how do they make sure that things are getting fixed, because we're starting to see attacks against mobile devices. Oops, sorry about that. There was on Twitter last night, if you follow the normal folks, there was some discussion around a DHS, FBI bulletin about attacks against mobile devices, and they're starting to see that. And there were some people that countered it, like Charlie Miller, who's a brilliant researcher, said, we're not really seeing it. I got in a discussion with Charlie and said, Charlie, I said, you come from the spook world. Charlie's former NSA. I said, you come from the spook world. You know how this game goes. There's stuff that we don't see or we can't talk about that we do know about on the vendor side that's happening, and this is why you get these early advanced things. So there are some attacks that are happening, but when I survey most companies are unaware of any direct mobile attacks right now, trying to attack the operating system remotely. But interestingly enough, it's starting to become a topic. So does everybody kind of agree with these risks? Any that you would disagree with? No? Any that you would add to this? All right, then I must be doing awesome today. This is good. Oh, I saw a hand right here. Legal discovery, yes. Yes, I don't have legal discovery on here. Yeah, so legal discovery is the big one. I was in the UK about 6 months ago, and I was at this event, and I got cornered by like 20 people afterwards, talking about e-discovery and forensics, and when we talk forensics here, proper like chain of custody, this has to go to court, that kind of thing. In the EU, it's very, very big. They're trying to find solutions for litigation support and forensic analysis that'll hold up in court on mobile, and they're having difficulties from what I'm understanding from a lot of the banks. So I take a kind of a different approach to some of the, my entire career I've been much more progressive. I say, let's find the progressive solutions. Let's find how we can solve problems while moving everybody forward, and let's get the understanding of the unknown risk, then evaluate what we have to do. And so this is my this is a slide that my co-founder uses all the time. He calls this guy Guido. I'd love to just meet this guy and get him to come to one of my presentations because he's been in so many of them at this point. I call this guy Guido, and the concept here is that there's old school security and new school security. And the old school security was lock it all down, deal with the user problems afterwards, right? I'm guilty of that. I've been in this business a very long time. I am guilty of doing that. The new school says, let's think about the users, think about the workflow, let's address those things up front. The reason why this is so relevant today is BYOD, we as the enterprise, as the employer, we don't own the device. Now, in mobile security in general, we might own the device. But we're seeing a big trend of many companies moving away from owning very many devices. They might own a couple, they might own some test devices, they might own a couple for some employees here or there, for key executives, whatever. But BYOD, by and large, is the mass, makes up the mass of our mobile deployments. So how many of you have more BYOD devices in your organization than enterprise-owned devices? Okay. How many are the opposite way around? How many of you have more company-owned than BYOD? Okay, a few more hands. All right. Now, let me ask. Somebody just put up your hands on that one. Shout out and answer. Why do you have more company-owned devices than BYOD devices? Legacy. And do you see that eroding and going away? Yep. Okay. And that's exactly what I hear from most people, is that we did a big investment, we bought Bez, or we bought Good, or we bought whatever, and we have these devices, and so people just have them. But as they're breaking, and as new devices are coming out, people are saying, well, I want this new fancy device. IT says we can't afford the cost on that, or we don't have that, but go buy it and fine, we'll hook it up. And we're seeing that creeping in most organizations. It's also a very East Coast, West Coast thing. We'll throw this back to Biggie and Pac a little bit here. On the East Coast, we actually still see businesses more conservative around technology. Okay, the company owns this, the company runs this. On the West Coast, on the West Coast, we have, that's right, I throw gang signs and stuff, that's how we do. So on the West Coast, because we're so overrun with technology companies, right? Not to say companies on the East Coast don't adopt technology, but because so many companies are technology focused, they're early adopters and they're liberal hippies. So they, that was just my political little rant there about San Francisco. And they tend to say, oh, do as you want, bring in whatever devices you want. Very interesting trend that I watch, and I have to remember which coast I'm on when I'm talking to customers about that, because I go, yeah, everybody brings in their own device. And they're like, no, we're a New York bank. We don't allow that. I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting enough, there's a Midwest bank that's a customer of mine, hugely progressive, all about BYOD in the banking industry. It amazes me. They're very, very new school, what I call new school. All right, so we talked about trust and why BYOD scares us, right? So there's some things that as we enter this market that we have to say, okay, we're gonna get rid of some of these legacy devices. They're gonna die, users are gonna buy new devices, they're not gonna be supporting more, whatever it is, they're gonna go away. Users are gonna just have a coup and take over IT, whatever it is, right? And so what we understand is that there's certain things that we have to be able to do for the company to be able to trust BYOD first. And a lot of that comes around just the visibility side of things. Who is accessing what? Where are they accessing it from? Where is data going? Is it stored on the device? Is it stored in an app? Is it stored to some cloud service? Does it go through 3, 4, 5 cloud services, right? One of the common use cases that I have that frustrated me to no end when I was at TiVo and Salesforce and even Disney is my day is packed with meetings, right? I am just running between things all day long. And I hate carrying my laptop. Even though this new Retina is much lighter and I can go get a MacBook Air and it's even lighter, I hate carrying it. I want to do everything on one device. And so I have my phone, and if I get an email and it's a purchase order, a statement of work, or whatever, it needs my signature, I want to e-sign that. I want to send that back. I want to upload that to whatever system accounting or purchasing tells me where I have to upload it to. I want to send it to the vendor. I want to share it with my team, whatever, via email or wherever we store those kind of things, all of that kind of stuff. And I always had the problem of doing those kind of things, before I had all these little fancy apps. But then when companies started restricting what I could do on my phone, then I couldn't do it. And it all came back down to exactly what we talked about earlier, is the lack of insight. Even I, as a CIO, basically sat down and said, would I allow anybody else to do this? Hell no. I get to do it because it's my privilege, as it's my title and job, which is not fair. But that's why I allow myself to do it. But I wouldn't allow anybody else, because I couldn't figure out where that data was going. I couldn't figure out what apps they had installed. Were those apps bad? Were they not? Were they copying my data? Did it go to China, Russia? Where was it? I don't know. And so this whole visibility is the big problem that we see that starts the conversation with BYOD in the enterprise and kind of mobile in general, right? And then the last thing that we see there, though, is user acceptance, right? So for Fortune 500, we also have to have user acceptance of this. How many of you get yelled at, probably on a weekly basis, by some irate employee within your organization for something that IT or security did? Yeah, see, I heard more laughs than hands going up. Nobody wants to admit that, right? It's the dirty secret. We all know it. Back in the day, right, I remember closing out a ticket in the help desk system, and I put that it was a problem between the keyboard and the chair. Little did I know the help desk admin had actually changed it so ticket resolutions got emailed to the end user. Holy shit, I spent some time with HR over that one. But the fact is that we have to take the user into account. And I'm the first one that's always like, screw the user, I don't care, I'm the CISO, it's how it goes. I learned my lesson somewhere along the way. Probably that day, I got yelled at so bad for that. I didn't think that was that bad either, but whatever. Okay, and so we have the other problem here of the what does the user need? So these are the big concerns that we hear from the users, right? Is their privacy, their impact to productivity, that single user experience, and we'll go into that in a second. Any other ones? Do you guys get any, so those of you that have rolled out some kind of mobile solution right now or are looking to roll out and talk to end users, Do you get any concerns from your end users? No? Yes? There's some concerns. So anybody yell out, what are some of the concerns that you guys get from your end users? Want to share? Privacy? That's an easy one because it's on the slide deck. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, go ahead. It's slow. Interesting. Okay, yep, the performance of it is slow. Is that just the performance of the device or of the workflow? Or both? What? Security slowing people down? Never. Never. That doesn't happen. Security, no, that doesn't happen. It's magical. It just works. You never see it. Anyway, that's my approach. Go ahead. Don't disable my features. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, I was screwing around with some of my staff yesterday while I was traveling, and I just kind of wanted to. Oops, did we lose the mic? Can you guys still hear me? Okay, there it goes. So we have this policy in-house called Eat Your Own Dog Food, and so we make everybody in the company use our product, and people will randomly get moved between different groups and configurations in our product, and so I'll just randomly grab somebody and throw them in a new configuration and let that force down to them, see what that impact is, because we see how the product works, but I also want to really get their feedback, right? Because I don't believe in going to a customer and saying, hey, yeah, everything's great, users are going to love this, unless I can see what the pain points are, and I allow them to do this to me as well, to be fair. So anyway, I just threw some restrictions on yesterday, and holy crap, you'd think I'd kill somebody's dog. And like, there was like a couple features I disabled just to see if they would notice. Oh, they noticed fast. Luckily for me, I was on an airplane, so I didn't have to deal with it. So. It's good being the boss. You don't have to deal with things. Anyway, so privacy is the number one concern that I hear. Sometimes it's not articulated very well, but users basically say, this is my device. I have a 2-year contract, and I got a deal from AT&T for $399 or $299 or whatever the current price is for an iPhone. And why are you installing something on it? Why are you doing something with it? What can you do? Are you going to accidentally erase my device? All of this kind of stuff. And it's a long conversation that ends up having to happen with the users. The larger the organization, the less you have to have this conversation because you're just big and you don't care and you say eat it and whatever. The smaller the organization, the more you have to deal with it because they can come and find you. They know where your desk is. And so you have to actually talk about this. That's what I find. And so we have to remember that it is the end user's device. It was Brian Katz had an article published on Information World either yesterday or the day before. The days tend to blur together for me when I'm traveling. But within the last week, he's had an article published that was great, and it said why everybody has failed at BYOD, or like basically, hey guys, this is why we've all screwed up. And his whole point, you can boil the 2-page article down to one point, and it's not the enterprise's device, it's the user's device, respect them. And this is where the privacy comes in, the features, all of that kind of things. Interesting side note, I have determined that the cost of end-user privacy is $49 a month. That's the cost of it. I have multiple customers that have all come to me for advice, because we work with a lot of companies that were in an early pilot program, and they come to us for advice. And I was sitting in one of their offices, actually the same day I named the company Blue Box, sitting in their office, and I was chatting with the director of mobility for the company, and he said, yeah, my users are pushing back on enrolling their devices. And I said, why? And he said, privacy. And I said, well, how are you going to get around it? I found that if I pay for their data plan every month, privacy concerns go away. So how much does that cost you? $49. Price of privacy, $49 a month. So anyway, use that. All right, so speeding through a couple of these here a little bit, but here's where we have an interesting disconnect right now, trying to meet those enterprise requirements and the end user requirements. Enterprises want users to use these enterprise-grade apps, right? So SharePoint, Intralinks, Citrix, Watchdocs, these sort of things, which I love Watchdocs, by the way. But employees want to use YouSendIt, Box, Dropit, SugarSync, pretty much any one of the 50,000 apps that are out in the app stores these days. They want to be able to use it. Interesting story about YouSendIt. A buddy of mine, CISO of a big credit agency, and they use one of the container solutions. And he said, the containers aren't working. I said, why? What's up? And he said, well, we have this internal file sharing app because we don't allow people to have the files natively on their mobile. It has to go through the container. And I heard that people were using YouSendIt. So I called up YouSendIt and I said, hey, I heard a lot of my users like you. I want to find out how many active users we've had in the last 30 days with email address at our domain. Sales guy falling all over himself, right? Huge customer. He can see how many users. He thinks it's a sales opportunity. He doesn't realize talking to the CISO is about to shut this down. Feel bad for the sales guy. And so the sales guy goes, yeah, you've had 400 different users use our service in the last 30 days. 400. So I asked him, I said, well, how much did you pay for that container solution? He said $2.5 million. Enterprise-wide, very large enterprise, okay? But $2.5 million. And just to give you kind of context so you can put that in terms of your own enterprise, so how much did you pay per device? Because it's on per device license. How much did you pay per device? He goes, well, it lists for 10 a device. We had a huge volume discount at 8. I didn't think that was a huge volume discount, but I was like, hey, that's great, 20%, awesome. No, that's bad. So $8 per device, right, across, you know, 2 million plus in spend, and his data was going around it. I asked him, I said, why are users going around your container? His answer, because it didn't work for them. I said, so now you have the sense of security because you have this container, but you found that you have this risk because data is going around it. So in reality, you had a false sense of security. So by implementing this container, you actually created another security problem. He goes, yeah. I go, shit, $2.5 million security problem, awesome. So this is where we have the big disconnect, is that the way we see the world and the way the end users see the world is often very, very different. And we have to figure out how to bridge that gap and close them in, right? With all of the risk and all the problems that we have and the cost of BYOD and mobile security and the Chinese on our mobile devices and baseband exploits and all this good stuff, is BYOD worth it? What would you all say? If you could turn back the clock and assume that BYOD is not already in your enterprise, is it worth it? Would you go forward with adopting a solution? Yes or no? Anybody? How many yes? Couple? How many no? Okay, almost no no's. Okay, so a lot of you guys aren't voting on that. Okay, good. I'm just checking my math skills today. I would do it. I would do it. Just because I've learned that it does create so much more productivity for myself, for end users, I would do it. But I would do it with the proper visibility, the proper controls, the proper data tracking and handling, right? But I would definitely go forward and do that. So let's talk about. So we talked about the enabling it and the benefits of it. No more Kinkos. How many guys do this, like when you're traveling, where you get something and you have to go find like a Kinko's or a FedEx store or something, and actually print something out, sign it, figure out how to scan it, how to email that back to your work email, get back to your hotel room, log into your laptop, email that to somebody and save it to the file share. Does anybody else have similar problems to me? Okay, thank you. I'm just making sure this is not a first world problem. Or as one of my friends calls it, a champagne problem. They're like, oh, poor you, you're traveling in Europe and you have to go figure out how to print a document. Shut up. So, I have mean friends. Okay. So this is kind of the mobile security landscape. How many of you guys recognize these acronyms? At least one or two of them on here. Okay. All right, I got the 20-minute mark. Excellent. All right, so this is kind of what the mobile security landscape looks like. So we're gonna go through this a little bit about strategy and what's good and where you will run into problems. So MDM, we all know MDM, right? These are the mobile irons, AirWatch, Zenprise, or Citrix now. These guys are great at what they do, right? They're device asset management. They're like your LAN desk for your mobile devices. They say, yep, you have 500 iPhones and 3,000 Androids or whatever. Usually it's always more iPhones. And I'm going to let you put a passcode on there. I'm going to let you inventory it so you know what apps are on there or what version it's running, etc. Right? Not a lot of security. It's got passcode and a remote wipe. I don't generally consider the security myself, but I consider it just general configuration features. But nothing to protect the data, nothing to protect applications or control application behavior in pure play MDM, right? But they're good at what they do. They're good at I have a bunch of devices. I need to be able to manage those. I need to be able to wipe those. I need to understand what's in my environment. That's very, very important in my opinion, right? So that's kind of MDM play. This is, I would call V2 on a maturity of mobile. V1 was we just kind of give them to, actually, sorry, I'm going to call this V2.5. V1 was we give people mobile devices and we don't really think about it. Kind of V2 or kind of V1.5 was, okay, yeah, there's some BYOD, let's lock it down via active sync or whatever, and then we kind of get a proper strategy into MDM. This is where we started actually paying attention when we had these vendors out there. The next are the containers. These are the goods of the world, right? The company that keeps reinventing itself and will never die because of litigation because they have so much IP in their parent company. They have awesome IP attorneys. Just by the way, if you ever get sued by Good, be careful. Their parent company is just awesome. That's where they actually make all their money. It's quite interesting to read if you see who they're suing these days. So in theory, the great thing about this is that it's a container. You have your work email, you have your work calendar. It's all in this little container. It can't get out, it can't escape. But as we saw with the You Send It example, it does escape. Also at Black Hat Europe, there was just a talk. I felt bad for the container guys. There was just a talk that basically destroyed all the containers and showed that, hey, look, they're great. I don't want to go as far as to say they're security theater. One of those researchers might have said that, so I'm not going to say it. But you know, they pretty much said, hey, look, there's a problem here. It's a naive state. So that was really interesting. But they're great in theory, and they will improve, and it's kind of set it, forget it. But it doesn't allow the user to maintain their workflow, the apps they need. It still causes some problems. This is where we saw a very small entrance in the market called MAM, Mobile Application Management. There was 3-4 companies that played in the space, and their idea was that instead of controlling the device, control the applications, because that's ideally where the data is, and why do you care about the actual device? I tend to kind of agree with this strategy. I think the strategy depends on your organization and your risk profile, but for many organizations, this does actually make sense. The problem is that the MAM market never matured. Nakona and RapSphere got acquired before they went big, actually before they launched. App Central got acquired by another company because they were stalling the market. This market actually never matured. Kind of unfortunate. Our IP in this is quite mature. We're not a MAM player. So it's interesting that this market never really evolved to the potential everybody thought that it would have. But the idea was take an app from a vendor, go to Box and say, hey, we use Box, we want to secure it, get their unsigned binary, put it in your custom app store, tell your users to download that one. It'd be integrated with your single sign-on and SAML and whatever, right? And it would have security control and policies around it, right? It's a wrapper around the code. And so the idea was great. There was business scale problem, user problem. It ran kind of amok. But it was probably one of the most hyped things in BYOD for a very long time. And then the last one you have is app reputation. This goes to the malware or malicious apps, which most people here didn't seem to really think was a problem. Kudos to you. Because it's not a huge problem right now. It eventually will be, just like anything else. We can see kind of the trend. We can see devices becoming more and more open, right? People are pushing for more and more control of their devices. As that progresses, we'll see more and more malware and malicious apps progress as well. But it's not there yet. This is years off at this point, though it is starting to come. So that's our landscape right now, right? But what we need, and what we need to make sure that we're doing, no matter what solution we go with, and whether we're adopting BYOD or really mobile in general, in my opinion, is that we need to make sure that we're applying our controls and our visibility. Visibility is the key, really, to here, because this is a space where we have no visibility. We have these vendor-locked devices, and we get no visibility. And so we need to make sure that wherever data is, whether it's on the device, crossing the network, going into an app, out of an app, to a cloud service, back and forth, that we're able to track that we can actually understand what a user is doing, who that is, what device that is, what data, the context of that data, right? Not that it's just corporate data, because as we all know from our failed DLP implementations, because there's a couple of you that did the same thing, where you're like, DLP, let's buy it, let's just throw it at everything. Holy crap, this is a flood of information. Let's back it down and restart, right? We all did that. Not all corporate data is equal, right? The JPEG that's attached to your email signature, you don't really care about securing. But the Word file that was attached there that had the new company's strategy or had your audit findings, that you care about, right? And so not all data is equal, so we need to apply a risk-based approach just like we do in other areas of our business right now. So understanding all of that across wherever the data is, wherever the applications are, wherever the device is, being able to log and report on that so that we can understand it, and then obviously the user empowerment. Empower the users to be able to use the applications that they need that make them productive, and actually, honestly, make our lives easier, right? Because the more users can do for themselves, the less we ever have to talk to them, which is my goal. I don't want to talk to users. All right, so this is something I saw from PwC a while back, and I just put in here. And basically just says that, for mobile, you need to have an approach that works on any device across everything, and it's great. There was another PwC quote that I talk about sometimes because I thought it was complete and utter bullshit the first time I read it. And then it was probably about a week later that I sat down and I just happened to see it pop up in an article somewhere, and I go, actually, that was true. And it basically said that mobile and BYOD is one of the biggest fundamental shifts in enterprise IT that we've seen in many years, and they equated it all the way back to personal computers. I'm not sure I'm ready to say that quite yet, but it is a huge, huge shift with the whole bring your own device, bring your own technology, the consumerization of IT and corporate data. Makes this a very, very interesting time and interesting space where we actually have to start to think differently because the game has really changed. Like we have to take a different approach now because we can't lock down a device that we don't own, and we have to figure out though how to understand the unknown, how to protect the data, and how to apply our controls. I'm glad you guys all three of them said those because that rolls really well into my presentation. All right, so we're coming up close to the end of time, but I want to leave some time for some questions. You guys are not a chatty group, but I encourage you to be so because I like it. Any questions or just comments? Anybody? You can raise your hand, you can yell out. I'm good either way. All right, so they gave me the 5-minute warning. I'll slip in one more. Any questions before lunch? All right, nothing, that's it.